here to say something, as Olivier said, I'm more an expert on geography innovation more in general. And of course AI is part of that, but it's not my specialization, but I will talk about it and will present some results. I am doing the keynote, but it's very much joint work with Pierre-Alexandre, who's around here, and most of the empirical research that I will show is joint work. So I have to tell you that first. All right. So what I would like to do is, and that's what I was asked for, is to see to what extent also AI might have an impact already on economic development. And because of my background in regional economics, I tend to look at regions, which of course is a major challenge. Because we already discussed this morning, that's not always easy to find the right data to see to what extent AI is adopted. And if you have not full knowledge on that, it might be hard to estimate the effect of economic development. So that is a challenge, and I think we have not really solved that. But of course, I'm not here to do a boring academic talk about measurement and what can be measured and what cannot be measured, but to show some results, at least from our own work, but also some results from colleagues that have tried to assess the impact of AI. First of all, which is I think the most easiest thing to do, is to use pattern data. Right, so because in pattern data you can really go into detail. You have the data set that we work with. We can differentiate between 250,000 technologies, and then you can actually try to connect to features of AI by textual analysis, and identify those pattern classes that can be associated with AI. So this is one of the, this was actually, I think it was a report we did for the World Bank not that long ago, and they were interested in, okay, so how is Europe doing as compared to China and the US? And it's a quite long period. We could, as was already mentioned, AI is already there for a long time. And this is about, this is for the period 2004-2021. And actually you could see that US was very much dominating in the early 2000s. Hello? Yeah. Was dominating in the early 2000s, but has lost its major share over time, now taking up about, I think it's 35%. Of AI patterns globally, but you can actually see that, of course, China is increasing its share to a very rapid extent, now taking more than 20% of AI patterns already, and this is just increasing in most recent years. Of course, we are interested in Europe, right, and how Europe is doing, and it's not very bright message that we can transmit here or that we can read here in the data. Europe is really losing out, still covering about more than 30% of AI patterns in the early 2000s, and this share has really shrinked over time. So that's one way of looking at it. Of course, we can look at the global scale, but also there are interesting observations to be made within countries. This is just the US, and this is a typical graph that Pierre-Alexandre and others made, and that was published in Nature Human Behavior. In which they just counted the number of patents, and you can actually see that most of AI patenting is going on the west coast of the US, in Silicon Valley in particular, but also the east coast, and there are some innovative hotspots elsewhere in the US. But super concentrated, as you can observe. I did a study myself on AI, the number and shares of AI patent applications across European regions. Okay, so on the left side, well, the left-hand side for you, from 1994 to 2017. On the left hand is a number of AI patent applications. On the right side is the shares of AI applications. And you can actually see in the beginning it was very much Germany that was driving AI applications. Regions like Oberbayern and Stuttgart and Mittelfranken were the key players in those days. But that has changed to some extent. It has more diffused widely across European regions. Nowadays, you have a few regions in the south of Germany that dominates AI applications. But also North Brabant region in my own country, around Eindhoven, is really doing well. And so you can see some dynamics going on, but still it remains very super concentrated in a few areas that generate most AI applications. Now, so what we conclude just by looking at data is that not all countries and regions have the same ability to contribute to artificial intelligence. And the big question is why? Why is that the case? Why do we see this super concentration in a limited number of countries and regions? Well, what we tend to look at is that you require a number of capabilities that are needed to master and produce new knowledge in artificial intelligence. And capability is kind of broad concept. It might capture knowledge, it might capture skill, it might capture even institutions that are needed to master AI. But what's important to emphasize here that is those local capabilities that are available, they condition to what extent it is possible for a region to develop AI. Some regions might have the right capabilities to move into AI, while other at most regions will lack those capabilities, and therefore the probability that they will move into AI is almost zero. And we use this type of reasoning by looking at the notion of relatedness. I won't go into that, but it's more it's about to what extent are there relevant capabilities that are closely related to AI and that are needed as an input to produce new knowledge in AI. And some regions have more of those than others, and that's why they would perform better in AI. So you can use patent data, for example, and you can just look to what are relevant capabilities outside of AI that AI is still using in order to produce new knowledge in AI. And this has been captured by this notion of relatedness. And that can then, and you can then build a network, as here. So here is artificial intelligence, and here there are other major technologies. And the bigger the node of the technology, in this case in the US, the more patenting is going on in that particular technology. But what is interesting to see, and you don't see it that good, but you see some lines going to artificial intelligence, meaning that those technologies that are linked to artificial intelligence, they provide useful inputs to develop new knowledge in AI. This is we use patent data, and we look at patent documents, and we do co-occurrence analysis, in which we look at to what extent two technologies are combined on a patent document in AI. And then they must have something in common, they must be related to AI, and that's why we define those. So some technologies are very much connected and related to AI and can provide inputs, can provide relevant capabilities to produce AI, but most technologies are disconnected from AI and are not relevant whatsoever. So if you are a region or a country that is specialized in many of these technologies that are related to AI, you also have high potential to move into AI. And this is the case in the US. The US is very much specialized in those, what we refer to as those supporting technologies. There are a lot of relevant capabilities that the US could build on in order to move into AI. And this is very much in contrast to the European Union. Here you have the same network. Again, here's artificial intelligence. You see already there's much less patenting going on in the artificial intelligence. But also if you look around the technologies that might support AI, they are not very dominant, they're not that very strong in the European Union. So you might say, well, the reason why the European Union is lagging behind, and to an increasing extent, is that they don't have very strong capabilities to move into AI as compared to the US. Well, you can also do that for European regions, right? So we use the same. Do European regions have relevant capabilities to move into AI? Because we think that is a strong predictor for to what extent they will specialize AI in the near future. This was just some work we did some time ago. I just skipped those. And you can do that, of course, for every region. So here, just for as an example, for Ile-de-France region. Okay, this was a work we did on the twin transition for the European Commission. But here is artificial intelligence. This is for the Paris region. And the more related is density, that is our measure of are there relevant capabilities around AI in Ile-de-France. Then you score high on relatedness density, and you can actually see that Ile-de-France has a huge potential to produce new knowledge in AI, because there are many relevant capabilities around on which it can build. And this differs very much from region to region. So that's why Ile-de-France is producing a lot of AI patents, while other regions lag very much behind because they have no relevant capabilities whatsoever. Now, so far I only talked about technological capabilities and as a major input to produce AI and to excel in AI. But you also want to see to what extent there are scientific capabilities around in a region that might help this transformation process and produce new knowledge in AI. And we use this, so to what extent do the scientific capabilities match the technological capability of regions in AI? That was a question that we were very much interested in. And then we made a typology to a 2x2 matrix. On the y-axis there are scientific publications per capita. You can belong to the top 25% scientific publications in AI. And on the x-axis there's patents per capita. So that is a proxy for the technological capabilities, and here for scientific capabilities. Now the best, of course, what can happen to a region is, and then we refer to them as a stronghold, that they have very strong scientific capabilities in AI and a lot of technological capabilities in AI, and then you expect that that would explain why they are strong in developing AI. But you can also be only a scientific leader. So you have a lot of scientific knowledge in AI, but not so much technological capabilities. This is, of course, the worst. Many regions are like that, of course. We refer to them as followers, but actually they lag behind. They have no scientific and no technological capabilities whatsoever. But also there's always an interesting category, and we'll see there are many regions in Germany like that have very strong capabilities in AI, but they lack the scientific capabilities. So there's a lot of patenting going on in industry, but it is not matched whatsoever by the scientific capabilities that are present in Germany. Here are the... Okay, so here I just presented it for ICT, but that is, I mean, we have done studies in which technological capabilities in ICT is a very good predictor whether you will specialize in AI. So here you find the strongholds in Europe. Of course, Ile-de-France is one. Very strong scientific and technological capabilities in AI. Here you can actually see what I referred to before. In Germany you have many of the yellow ones, right? Those are the technological leaders. Strong technological capabilities, but not matched by any scientific capabilities. So in that sense, Germany might have a problem. and they have to upgrade their scientific capabilities in order to move on. If you need both to excel in AI in the near future. There are also a lot of scientific leaders, right? They have strong scientific capabilities. Their universities really are very good in AI, but it is not matched whatsoever by technological capabilities. So that might be not sufficient to move into AI, because you have to have both in order to produce the best outcome. What we also looked at is, so far we refer to as capabilities that are present in the region, right? Scientific capabilities, technological capabilities. The more you have them, the higher the probability that you will produce AI. But you can also link to other regions, because you might lack some capabilities that you need to produce AI, and therefore you connect to other regions. You might establish scientific collaborations with other regions. You might trade, you might, migrants might make a link between regions, so that capabilities that you miss are imported from elsewhere, and then you can still excel in AI. So we use this type of, we have developed a method in order to measure the type of complementary capabilities elsewhere. In this case for Rhône-Alpes region, over here. So that's why we made that blank. So we say, okay, so Rhône-Alpes might have some capabilities to move into AI, but it could connect.
I think you have to switch the microphone.
Right, okay. Yeah, don't worry. So Rhône-Alpes has some capabilities to move into AI, but not all of them. So here, this map actually show where are the complementarities that Rhône-Alpes needs to move into AI, to which regions it could connect, to tap into the knowledge that they don't have themselves, but which they need in order to move into AI. So we call those complementarity maps, right? So you can actually see that there are some regions in France that Rhône-Alpes could connect to, but also in the Netherlands, or in the Baltic states, or in Spain, or in the southeast of the UK. And we can be really precise in what type of capabilities this should tap into in order to get access to capabilities that Rhône-Alpes is missing itself, but what they need in order to move into AI. Well, those complementarity maps, of course, differ very much from region to region, because here, this is the case for Occitanie. This, a similar map, where are the complementarities for Occitanie? But Occitanie, of course, has a different history, has different capabilities, and therefore the complementarity map will look very different. Because what it shows, again, is capabilities that are not in Occitanie itself, but what it needs to develop AI. And here there's the map around, and it could connect, for example, to some regions in Belgium, to Ireland, that can really mean something, in this case for Occitanie, if it really wants to move into AI and fully develop that. So here you can actually see which regions matter in that respect in order to do that. Now the question is, these are complementarities. So in theory, those complementarities are available. The big question is, does the region actually connect and tap into that knowledge that is available in other regions? And this is just what Pierre-Alexandre was constructing, and we're still trying to visualize it as best as possible. But this is about the AI network of interregional collaborations in Europe. And this is based on co-inventor linkages, right? So if on an A patent document, two inventors collaborate, right? So, and one inventor is in one region and the other inventor is in the other region, there is an interregional collaboration. So that is how it is measured. And okay, it's not very visible yet, but what we tend to show is the regions, those in the same country, we gave them the same color. And international linkages Okay, you can see them a bit. They're light gray. You just have to believe me, most of the interregional collaborations in AI have a strong national bias. So before I showed complementarity maps, and what we found is that the complementarities are almost often outside of your own country. And now we look at what are the collaborations that actually take place. Are European regions doing a good job? Do they really exploit the capabilities that are present and that could be relevant for them in order to move into AI? They're not connecting to those. So there's a strong national bias in the AI network of interregional collaborations, and I think that, so there's a lot of untapped potential in Europe, and that's why, might be another reason why Europe is lagging behind, and to an increasing extent to China and the US, because they're not exploiting the complementarities that are around in Europe. Here also another, this is more for digital technologies, also to illustrate a bit more in detail. This is for digital technologies, and here we just mapped the three most important interregional collaboration each region has in digital technologies. And here is the complementarity map, the ones that they should connect to. And we made two colors. The red ones are interregional linkages within the same country. And in yellow is the cross-national border collaborations, right? The international linkages. As you can see, is what regions actually do is connect with other regions in their own country. But what they should do is connect to regions outside their own country, because that is where the best complementarities are. So again, it's another illustration of that Europe is really doing a poor job. It is lagging behind in capabilities, but also in making the connections between regions in order to tap into capabilities that they might miss themselves in order to move into AI. Now, this is only pattern data, right? So you can say, okay, this is of course it's a crucial aspect of AI, also in terms of international competitiveness, but also, and here it becomes even more complicated. Here are, this is just an example of where artificial intelligence might actually be used. I mean, previous speakers today have already talked about that, how complex that actually is. I mean, we have very poor data on the adoption of AI, and you can imagine there are many sectors, many economic activities in which AI is actually used, or at least we think we have indication that it is being used, or we identify them as potential applications. But of course, we do not have an idea on to what extent that AI is adopted in all those sectors. So you can imagine how hard it is to estimate the effect of AI on regional development, because you should, in a way, you should take into account all those activity and whether it's causing labor augmentation or labor substitution, right? So it's even that makes it even more complicated, because AI can do both, as we heard this morning. So it's super complex, and we are not yet there to say anything useful there. So here, and this has already been also discussed this morning. Here's some graph on the jobs that are at risk. This is taken from Goldman Sachs Global Investment Research, and here they look at the share of full-time equivalent employment exposed to automation by AI, and they make a distinction between development and emerging economies. And actually, you can see that the most developed economies they have more jobs that are exposed to AI. Does not really come as a surprise, because also Laura, for example, showed that these are the highly educated, most skilled jobs. And of course, those countries have much higher shares in that type of jobs as compared to emerging economies. Here, so you get some indication what might be going on. And then there are some people that really do some very ambitious things. They use those data on which jobs are at risk, or in this case, the average automation potential, in this case by US counties. And you can actually see huge differences. But what they do is they collect national data and see, okay, what type of occupations are more exposed to AI, or what even more industries are exposed to AI. And then they look at the distribution of those occupations or the distributions of these industries across counties. But of course, it might be a way to do it. But there's a very strong assumption is that, for example, a computer science on the West Coast in Silicon Valley is doing exactly the same task as a one in the countryside in Texas, which of course is not the case. The last one would probably execute more simple tasks as a computer scientist than the one that is in Silicon Valley, who is really on the frontier and producing new knowledge in computer science. Again, this might be useful information, but this is as far as we can go. Here you have many papers coming out now that are actually measuring this, right? This is the job automation risk across European regions based on EU labor force survey data, which is not a very good data set. It's a sample, and not all regions are covered to a full extent. Actually, my own country is missing, the Netherlands. I mean, we are always in every data, but in this case we are not, because we don't provide them. And here you can also see some weird pictures, right? So Romania, for example, is very much exposed and has high job automation risk. But now another study, right? Okay, it's a bit different, right? It's exposure by emerging digital technologies. I like very much this study. It's still a working paper, but they're very keen on. They go from technologies. And to what extent AI technologies can be connected to specific occupations. And then they go from occupations to industries and industry exposure. And they do it for all kinds of digital technologies. And then you get a very different map. Right? So, I mean, if you compare it with the previous map, it's a very different picture. Okay, it's not only on AI this time, but on digital technology. So there's a difference there as well. And my last slide, I think, is really about, and this was, of course, the most ambitious I've seen so far, is produced by McKinsey Global Institute. And I've seen this map in many different events. So what they try to estimate is net job growth by 2030 in a kind of automation scenario that they developed before COVID. By the way, it's also based on quite old data. And they make an estimation where most of the net job growth will take place by 2030. And actually, you can see here there are some. If you are in the blue, you're okay. You have net growth. But if you're in red, you might be in trouble. And you can actually see that the more, for example, you go to the east, the more the regions are red-colored. Also, I find quite interesting. Almost whole East Germany, it's still East Germany, is in that particular, let's say, warning zone. But anyway, so people now try to really estimate the effect on employment growth across European regions. But I think here we have to do still a better job, and there's so much unknown that there's a lot. We need a lot of research in order to improve in that respect. Okay, I'll leave it to that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
I will introduce the roundtable a couple of minutes. So I'm Jérôme Vicente from Sciences Po Toulouse, University of Toulouse. I'm an economist, professor of economics, working on economics of innovation, on technological change. I did research on many technological dynamics on smartphone industries, global navigation, satellite system industries, and recently on industrial digital platforms. So it's more or less connected to the topic of today. We have a wonderful panel. I will give you the floor to introduce yourself. But before, I would like to give you the floor, each of you, for 5, 6 or 7 minutes on your own view on the topic of this roundtable. So Ron has started to speak about competitiveness. So you can have the floor for more time if you want. But beyond this general topic, I would like to ask you to discuss about 2 points that I think are important for competitiveness and maybe for regional and industrial competitiveness in Europe. The first one is this kind of dilemma we have today between regulation. We need regulation for AI, of course, but the dilemma between regulation and innovation, because some of authors show that too much regulation to protect users, of course, it's really necessary, can prevent creative capacities for firms. So I would like to have your feeling about that. And my second question is more or less related to the presentation of Ron. Of course, we speak about AI, but we speak about AI in a very generic sense. And for instance, for our region, one of the challenges of AI is how AI connects to our industrial basis. How AI connects to manufacturing firms, aircraft, satellite, agriculture, cosmetics. And I think it's a challenge today because we always speak about AI in a very generic sense, sometimes having in mind only Google Maps and Tinder. But I think AI have to connect to other technologies such like industrial IoT, like satellite navigation systems. How we can combine these technologies to improve the business model of firms. Scholars speak about the servitization of our manufacturing industry. So I would like to have your feeling about that, if it's possible, of course. So I will introduce now rapidly. Who wants to start? Yes. So I will present till Klein. I thank you very much because we joined us recently. You are head of the Trustworthy AI at Applied AI, which is a kind of European AI initiative, I think. And you're also part of the expert group on AI at the OECD. I learned that you have recently organized a roundtable at Davos on this topic. So thank you very much for being here. And thank you very much because for you it's Good Friday, and I don't understand why we don't celebrate Good Friday in France. So we apologize for that.
Because we celebrate so many things.
Then after I will give the floor to Pierre-Alexandre. Pierre-Alexandre Balland, everybody knows him. He's a professor at the Utrecht University, associated fellow at ANITI, and in other university, MIT, Harvard, and the CEPS, the Center for European Policy. So thank you also for being here. You are an expert on economic complexity, on regional development, on urban economics, and also on AI. And so it will be very interesting to have your view on that. And I don't introduce you because we just introduced, but I'm so happy to have you on the board on this roundtable. So first I give the floor to Till. I'm not sure he hear me.
It's your turn. Can you hear?
It's my turn.
Yeah.
Yes, I can, and I will share my screen. I hope that works. Can you give me a sign if that's coming through?
Yes.
Excellent. Beautiful. So I'm just going to send a wave hello. Thanks for having me. I don't see Pierre-Alex and Olivier. So really nice seeing you. I'm at a public space. We have a holiday today, but I was so intrigued by the topic, so I want to make sure that I'm in. So I will share a couple of slides, and then I'm also happy to join the discussion. Can you hear me well and see everything? Yes? Okay. Cool. So then I'm just going to, so what's the idea? The idea is to look at AI regulation as a regional mode. And the question is, well, how can we leverage this new feature of the competitive landscape for competitiveness in Europe? Just about myself, 2 words. So I'm with Applied AI. I'm with the OECD as well. I've been working a lot in regulatory topics on medical devices, drones, audits. Did my PhD in economic geography, building a lot on the work of Pierre-Alexandre, Boschma, and others. So really excited to be part of this discussion today. About our organization, Applied AI, the Institute for Europe. On the right side, we're a non-profit. Our goal is to empower professionals across Europe, really on using AI. And we're a joint venture of Unternehmertum, which is a large entrepreneurship center in Munich, and the AI Innovation Park in Heilbronn, which is also a program at the moment right now. But there are 2 major initiatives in southern Germany driving AI. And there's a last intro point. We see ourselves as the open access accelerator for trustworthy AI. So in the non-profit fashion, we want to help organizations to become compliant and use AI trustworthy soon and like quick and cheaper, so to speak, right? With providing training and tools and engagement opportunities to strengthen those networks. And here are just some snapshots with organizations that we're working with. Jumping into the topic. So I guess this is nothing new, but it's worth acknowledging that today we have pure global competition in the AI economy, because pretty much participation is equal everywhere where we have free and open internet. And we see clearly lots of models being developed locally, globally, most prominently, of course, from the US West Coast and other places where those services are exported. And with the exception maybe of China, where you have a more closed internet, organizations in Europe are competing with the US and otherwise. So it's an equal market, so to speak, and we see also that those sort of existing economic power imbalances really create situations when it comes, for instance, to the large economic dependencies on large models that we currently see with OpenAI and others. So, but that's, I guess, a bit of the situation we have. Now then, let's look into the idea of market entry barriers from a regulatory standpoint. And here we see that this is nothing new, really, right? So we cannot simply open a bank or supply a hospital or sell airplanes because those markets are regulated. And they're regulated for reasons, and I think we can all agree that this kind of makes sense and is accepted. But we see still a lot of activities because these are attractive markets. We see very successful banks and airlines and so on, because it's really a great market opportunity. So we see organizations being absolutely prepared to go into this space so they can exploit the market. So that's nothing new. Now what's happening is that we see AI regulation being introduced really as a new feature of the regulatory landscape. And this is a busy slide, apologies for that. So it's on the left side, you see how the AI Act in Europe is regulating AI. It has this risk-based approach. Those at the top, they're unacceptable, they're basically prohibited. The yellow and green, they're like green is not regulated, yellow somewhat, but the high risk bit, like this, the orange layer, really is sort of the tough one where things are in principle allowed, but only if they really undergo or meet high regulatory standards. And these are all things, and I listed some here, like medical devices, machinery, elevators, toys, critical infrastructure, and so on. These are already complex things, and we see here from the complexity observatory on the right, so we kind of sell a lot of this. And so the regulation is adding further complexity when using AI in those markets. And as the regulation stands, right, it is a market entry barrier because if you are not compliant, you cannot address the market. You simply cannot sell your AI medical device if it's not meeting those requirements, medical plus the AI Act, toys plus the AI Act. So it's really coming as an additional layer on top of that. So we have, and this complexity, just to illustrate, is of course on the technical side, we think of data, robust cybersecurity, and so on, but also from the legal and procedural side, it's really complicated. We work with large corporates, and they're really hands in the air. They're not sure how to do this. So we have a big learning platform. On the side note, because I've been following the AI Act for the last 2 years or so, this is a quote from Paul Nimitz, one of the chief negotiators here, and he said in the podcast, the only ones benefiting from the complexity are the rich, powerful companies who can manage the complexity, so they love it. They love to create more complexity to their benefit because they can easily step over it, raising the bar so that others can't. So what does it mean for the market? It's kind of, it seems like AI regulation is sort of supercharging the first mover advantage. Because those who can get across the fence, they can address the market and train their models. And we've seen this for, like, I mean, looking at Google, they were not the first, they were first search engine, but they could improve it so fast because they were exposed to so much data and they could train the algorithms quicker, giving them a leap. So that it was really hard for others to catch up for a long time. So it's not a linear benefit, so to speak, being the first one. And also, once you're there, you can address the market as long as someone else makes the effort. And we see sometimes companies really hesitating, should I go into this high regulated AI space or not? So it's really a point of consideration that companies have. And so how will it shape the market? I mean, we have to see. So it, on the one side, sets the market entry barrier, right? So the fence is the same for everyone. The rules apply equally. So if I'm high risk in a high risk AI space, these are the requirements. But then it also depends on your internal capabilities and the external support you receive, right? So I didn't put labels now on those three persons, but we can easily imagine that a large organization that has been lobbying for the last 2 years on the AI Act with deep pockets and many lawyers, they will have no problem whatsoever being really quick, compliant with those high-risk requirements. We see some, say, larger European companies being also active, maybe still struggling, maybe getting over this. But those who will have the biggest gap, so to speak, are the small, medium-sized enterprises, backbone of economies, the startups, really our hopes in terms of making a push in many ways. But also looking outside of Europe. So we've been, I in touch also with UNESCO and other global organizations thinking about, for instance, AI in the global south. So everyone who wants to sell AI into Europe needs to meet those standards, be it from Africa, Latin America, we're talking to Australia. They have this problem. They say, like, well, how can we make business with AI, like with Europe in AI, when we have those requirements in space? So this is the barrier kind of goes in many ways. And now the question is, well, how can we support those, like if you want to have a more plural and diverse market, we should provide external support to those who want to participate in this, helping them to get across this new barrier. So this is sort of kind of in a nutshell the main points, and like I just a couple of thoughts for discussion. So it's getting loud here because there's a opening soon as I still can hear me. So one question is, for instance, what is the market barrier actually made of? Right, we see that it's there, but it's difficult to grasp. And one thing that we use as a metaphor is this legislative lasagna. Right, if you're a machinery company or a medical or an airplane company, you have different layers or slices, if you will. You all have to fill your like general legislation, GDPR and so on. But then you have your sectorial layer. You have certain parts of the digital economy package, and then of course your AI cherry on top. So what exactly is the barrier? You see investors making up their minds, right? Where should they invest? Because we see some investors go for high risk. They say high risk, high reward. Others say on purpose, let's go for low risk because there's less legal uncertainty. So how can we shape those investment decisions? We see funding as a problem. And of course, bottom line is then the question, well, what can we do today, both as a company, but also for governments? We see this, both regional and national governments are at the moment trying to get ready to leverage this new feature of the competitive landscape so that we can accelerate AI in Europe in the future. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't draw too much of our time.
Thank you. I give the floor to Pierre-Alex.
Yes, can you guys hear me? Or not really well? Okay. Can I have yours actually, Joe? Doesn't work.
All right. First of all, thank you so much, Till. It's a pity that you're not here with us. It's always fun to see you. First time in Utrecht, then in Melbourne, Australia, then last month in Brussels for the Ideas Lab. And it's a pity you cannot join physically. But thank you so much, because I know that you're on a trip right now with your kids on the museum. So my first question to you is actually, are you staying or are you going back to your activities? Otherwise, we could have some question for you now, and then you can go. Huh? What do you prefer?
No, I can stay. You
can stay a bit. Okay.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So the title of this session is really AI and European competitiveness. Okay. So let's summarize a few points. Some that has been said, but I think we need maybe to say them louder. The first one is that we, Europe, needs to lead in AI production. And that might sound, okay, yeah, that's obvious, we all agree on that. It's not that obvious, because in policy circles, what I hear now too often is, we missed the AI revolution, but that's okay, we still can do an AI uptake. We can do the application, we can have a second layer, okay? And I think that's a very dangerous idea. It's a very dangerous idea, because there are very strong link between the capacity to produce new AI technologies and then the implementation in different industries. So you cannot just be an adopter, a user, because otherwise what you are is literally a customer. You're a customer, you're paying. Whenever if we favor the uptake of American large language models in European companies, well, first of all, these mics don't like the first issue is that we become we rely on a third party, which is, if you build software, that's something usually you want to be very careful with, because rely on third party APIs, there is a cost basis, and there's also more complexity in the way there are also cybersecurity issues, as we discussed this morning with Veronique. And I could develop actually probably 100 more points on why we need to lead in AI, but that's something we need to be very careful with, because again, and we talk with R&I policymakers at the European level, is there is a bit of this idea that, okay, we're too late, we missed it, it's okay, we'll favor the uptake. And I think it's a very dangerous idea. So I can maybe do double. So that's how you build resilience in engineering, right?
We need some backup.
I once asked to engineer in aerospace. It actually works. Okay. I have to do it. Engineer in aerospace. How do you build resilience in satellites? So we just send 2 satellites, right? And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So the first point is really that we need to lead in AI. We need to make that an absolute core strategy, and this is what China is doing, this is what the US is doing, and this is not what Europe is doing. Some countries within Europe are, of course, moving very fast into having an AI strategy, but we need to do something like this at the European level. This is really important. What we need, more than anything else, is an Airbus moment for AI. We need to have the different hubs, European hubs, coming together and linking seriously. What you show on this network on AI collaboration is really sad. It's really bad. If you look at the US, it doesn't look like this. If you look at China, it doesn't look like this. Essentially, you have hubs. The 3 major hubs of AI in Europe are 1, London, 2, Paris, 3, Munich. What you will expect, is to see a lot of connection between these 3 hubs, and you don't see that. Like the first top 10 connection of Paris are actually with other French regions that the world never heard about, and that's really bad. That's really bad. It is very inefficient. So we have a systemic failure of bringing together AI capabilities in Europe, and I agree with what you said. That's probably one of the major reasons why Europe is lagging behind in AI. That needs to stop, and there are policy instruments. Happy to develop if you have questions, but there are policy instruments to actually make sure that we create again an Airbus moment. I mean, I'm gonna be very careful, because we have actually people that work for Airbus for 20 years here, so I'm going to be very careful. But what we know, as people that grew up in Toulouse, is that indeed at some point we had to unify. We had to stop competition between Germany, France, the Netherlands, the UK, and we had to start creating a true European company. And Airbus is a beautiful example. And if anything, in a very complex technology like aerospace, Airbus is leading. You know, I would claim that probably leading in front of an American company that is Boeing today. So we need to think about this type of system at the European level, and there are wonderful initiatives. Till is involved in that. Clemens Wessner, who was also one of our potential speakers today, is also involved in that, and we need to double down. Now, there are some issues. If you will ask me why we're leading behind. We're leading behind. Why we are lagging behind? Of course, we don't have a large integrated digital market. And that's different from connection in terms of innovation. Huh? But like our digital market is not integrated. Jérôme, yesterday in your presentation, we had a private event yesterday, sorry, where Jérôme was presenting on digital platforms, which was very interesting. And you were giving an example of some application like Doctolib and others that have geographical boundaries. And that's actually a feature of European digital market, not AI, but digital market, but both are connected, obviously, is that we have different borders. We have borders. So if you think about the very first social media that is, like Facebook, do you know where it was invented? Was Facebook the first? The very first one?
No,
eh?
in France, Budapest.
No, yeah, exactly. The very first one was called International Who is Who in Hungary. And actually, it was so successful, it spread like wildfire within Hungary. So it was like Facebook, the same idea. But way before, 4 years before Facebook, which in this space is a very long time. Wonderful, wonderful. The entire population that had access to internet was on International Who is Who. Now, what happened when Facebook entered the market? Well, International Who is Who churning went like crazy, and basically, a number of users dropped to zero, and then, the company collapsed. And this is something that you see again and again and again, which is like these digital markets not being integrated is a big issue. And you were mentioning a lot of examples like this. Lack of private and public funding. I mean, this is staggering. And there are things that we cannot change. For instance, a lot of money, private money for AI comes from VC, venture capital, right? What is behind venture capital? Pension funds. In France, we have a different type of pension system that basically does not give the capacity to invest so much. So these are things very structural, but then I lead to an expert in finance who actually might have some idea on also how to change the system. These issues are interconnected. It's way bigger than what we're talking about today, but there are links. There are reasons why we lag behind. And that's also why there is also like a lot of internet money that was made in the US that could not be reinvested in startups in Europe. If you think about internet, again, who invented the internet? Right? Who invented the World Wide Web, the WWW? It was CERN. It was actually in Europe, and by a British inventor. But again, the commercialized part was in the US. So Europe is actually really good at research. And actually, if you map AI research, Europe is doing great. We're just really bad at making money out of it. So usually there are two things that happen. Either our inventions are being used in the US and exploited, like commercialized, or our top talent goes to the US, which is another big major issue. If you look at NeurIPS, so NeurIPS is one of the biggest, probably the biggest and most prestigious AI conference in the world. We did this analysis at CEPS. We look at where the top presenter, people that present in oral presentation in NeurIPS, where did they graduate? Well, I mean, more of them graduated in Europe than in the US. Now you look at where they work now, you can guess. And we can, there are policy instruments. Everything I'm pointing out, these are major issues that are blockers for AI competitiveness in Europe. And there are policy instruments. I'm not just throwing stones and being like, no, they are a degree of freedom and political choice that can be made to correct that, not in one day, but we need to start thinking about it. And just, I'm going to run through a few points and then happy to go back to them or add later. But clearly, we need to invest more at the EU level. We're not investing less, also in terms of, we're not investing enough, also in terms of public funding. Now, we need to invest in the right technologies in the right place. And that's going back to one of the slides of Ron, if you got the idea, is that not every region has a similar ecosystem. Okay, it's like trying to plant tomatoes in the north of Norway or in Italy. You won't have the same productivity, right? One works better than the other. Same funding, an AI program in Toulouse or in, I don't know, I have to be careful, another place which is not as great as Toulouse will not have the same impact. And we need to be very, very careful on how we prioritize investment in specific technologies, in specific regions. And AI is way too big. If you look at scientific publication and you flag AI technologies, I mean, you have like millions of documents, millions of publications. AI is... So we have to start thinking about, within AI, sub-part of AI, because AI is big, we were talking about it yesterday night, but also different domain of applications. So this kind of investment smart graph that we propose, you have to break them down by application, and actually we're doing a project now in the context of Ukraine reconstruction that actually take these ideas into account. So there are potentials. Invest in the right links, think in terms of systems, and not in terms, again, back to Laura in some extent, think in terms of system and interdependencies. This bullet point I'm going to skip because I cannot reread myself. Academic is industry links. I mean, that's something, if you compare the US and Europe, this is something really very, very sad. We don't have the culture, especially in France, we don't have this culture of merging academia and industry together. It's almost like two different sides, and if you think in that term, it's going to be really hard to commercialize application that comes from research. But this is incredible. Just look at the amount of French academics that also have a company, that are this bilingual in another case. It's very low compared to the US. In the US, it's very much the norm. So there are a lot of things that need to be changed. And actually, if you go back in time, in the 70s, you had two experiments. You had the Stanford model and the UCLA model. Sorry, not UCLA, the UC, University of California in general, which has 8 universities. The UC model was, you have to make a choice. Either you're an academic or you're an entrepreneur. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you leave academia, period. What happened? The top entrepreneurs in computer science or in biotech, they left. And Stanford was like, please stay, we're going to accommodate, we're going to make it work, but we need to keep you also in academia, which was a wonderful bridge. And then the UC system adapted, because it was not a good strategy. But like, how far are we from thinking about these kind of things in France or in Europe? I mean, how far are we? We're very far. Then there is a point that I think is important. It's a fun one, and I'm going to end on that. It's a fun one, but we don't think about it enough. And it's marketing. It's marketing. So we can all agree that the reason why the US is so innovative and has been so innovative for hundreds of years is because they are a magnet for talent, globally, magnet for talent. And there are a lot of reasons. We always talk about the salaries, we talk about a lot of things. But one of them is actually Hollywood, the movies, the TV series. The US this is a marketing machine for the US. So I grew up thinking that I could be a waitress in a coffee shop and live in a wonderful apartment in Manhattan, right? If you watch Friends. Disclaimer, waiter. Maybe I wanted to be a waitress, that's fine. No, so you have to think about it also in this way. It doesn't work like that. And it's a wonderful marketing machine that make you dream that you can make it. And whether it's true or not is another question, but the amount of people that come with intention and the pride is something really important, and we do a terrible job in Europe with that. Terrible job. People discover how nice European cities are when they are here, but we don't do a really good job in advertising that. Now, related to that, University of Toulouse, Shanghai ranking. If you're not from Toulouse, apparently Toulouse is still not University of Toulouse, not fully unified. You have someone here that spent 5 years, 6 years trying to do that. Congratulations, that's hard work. And no, it's important because when students also, like, again, if you go to the US, students are extremely proud of the university. Right? Proud to be at the university. Even university that you've never heard of, they're very proud. All of that is a construct, and it's super, super important to attract people. Because, if you look at behavioral studies, people have two very strong motivations when it comes to finding, moving from one job to the next. Two very strong motivations. One is money, one is status. Yeah, sorry for being blunt, but you can really divide these two categories. Money, status. So either you take a job because you make a lot of money, or because of status. And we have to make sure that this amount of recognition is also there. So a lot of levers, a lot of potential, a lot of work as well, but we need to have this conversation. So thanks, Jérôme, and happy to take questions.
Yeah. No. All right. All right. I did mine. Okay. All right. Maybe I want to say one thing about European regulations without knowing too much about the topic. But what I have the feeling is that when we develop AI regulation in Europe, it's very defensive in the sense that things happening in AI, and then there's a very strong desire to control. Right, and to get rid of things that we don't like about AI. So the feeling that I have, which is not very based on research, but the feeling that I have when I'm in Brussels, is that they want to form obstacles and think more in terms of constraints than instead of providing opportunities. Right. So still looking at what would be desirable in terms of AI. But that I think it would be a different type of attitude that we could adopt. So in that sense, I think, and I'm not so sure about how that is in the US, but I think in the US they think more in terms of opportunities there, right? So. I think also the European Union is very proud of having strong regulations, right? So, and as Astil was also saying about these high risk things, and there might be very good reasons, right, why that is the case, and the AI might also have all kinds of adverse effect that we might not like and that we want to control. But that is what Europe is, in a way, very strong at, is developing regulations, right? So I think that was also a book that was not produced that long time ago, that this is a kind of export model for Europe, right? So they make regulations, international regulations, they regulate international market, and that is what they're very good at, and they have a very strong ambition to do so. But at the same time, it might restrict opportunities too much, and therefore might be one of the explanations for why we might lag behind. It's not the full explanation, but I think we have to think about that. So this was a kind of unexpected intervention. I hope it's useful.
Thank you, Rob. Maybe Till, you want to react to the we can make close exchange now. Till, do you have some question or comments on the speech of Pierre-Alexandre Ron? I don't know if you hear me. Yeah. If you want to.
Till, I will. Yeah. Till, do you want to react to what has? Otherwise, we can also take questions from the room. But do you have reactions?
Yes, I would maybe rather add also to the points that Pierre-Alex mentioned about the question about what can we do actually to drive competitiveness. And I would make 2 points here. So one is it's basically about the role of the state, the role of the public bodies in this regard. And so what we see is that the EU often acts more as an enabler, right? So it says, okay, we have a market, here's some rules, go do something, right? Whereas, and this also came up in the CEPS in Russia, is that what we see more in the US is a more of a mission-oriented policy making, as in like, here's a goal, let's reach that goal. And I think a nice example that we also made for ourselves is the European Green Deal, where an explicit goal was formulated by the policymakers on the highest level. There's been a strong commitment to it. And I think this is an opportunity for Europe to say, okay, well, what is our explicit goal when it comes to AI? And to make that crystal clear and have other policies aligned with that, on talent, on funding, and so on. And what goes hand in hand with this is that I would also love to see the EU being a strong adopter of AI. So when it comes to public procurement, for instance, we see this in the US a lot also. For instance, in military, startups being heavily funded by military And they're not free from regulation there, right? I mean, it's really hard to sell to the US Army. But we see startups holding their services to a level like, I mean, Palantir is a prime example of this, now going into the industrial sector with the AI capabilities they build up there. And I think there's the narrative often about Europe, like selling to the state is really bureaucratic and burdensome and maybe also not attractive. So like I was at the Munich Security Conference, and it takes something like 15, 16 years to sell to the German armed forces. That's insane. So it needs to be attractive for companies to sell their AI to the state, and the state needs to want to buy them and really role model the adoption. And that's, I think, another instrument, because then it gives it supports any company who have a reference customer in the state, which will allow them to scale. So this, I think, another instrument I would love to see being useful.
Thank you, Till. Some questions from Romaric first.
Let's try.
And then after, behind.
Yes. So does it work? Yeah, it works. So my question is, I think it was really interesting to see the comparison between the US and EU in terms of competitiveness on AI. I have several questions linked to more detailed aspect of the methodology that we can discuss later. But the first stuff is, does patent is the right metric to measure our innovation capability in AI? And also the question that, since the kind of patent that you can put in the US and in Europe are not the same, the patent law is different regarding software globally, not only AI. So yeah, I was wondering how much you took that into account to make the analysis. And the second aspect is linked to this aspect of finding the cooperation inside Europe, which I think is really interesting in terms of analysis. You also made it on patent, whereas patent is difficult. I mean, usually it's not the best tool to measure cooperation. So I was wondering about, in AI, open source is also a huge trend. So I was wondering whether you have also analyzed open source production over Europe, compared it to the US, also looked at potentially different regions collaborating on open source.
Yeah. Yes, thanks. I'll take this question first, and then I forward it to Pierre-Alex. Yeah, about the measurement of AI and AI applications. I mean, we take we connect it to different technology classes, right? In which AI is mentioned, or at least so there's a long list of technology classes that are associated with AI. And then we run the analysis for all countries in the world, right? So that's what we do. So all technology classes are included. The same technology class included everywhere, whether it's in China or Europe or the US. So it's just indicating how much patenting is going on in the field of AI, and that's it, right? So that is at least the methods behind it. Yeah, about the complementarities part, yes, it's on co-inventor linkages now. Now there is a lot of patent collaboration going on, right? So it's not a bad indicator, I would say. But we also now doing scientific co-publication. So it's another way. But what we like about co-inventor linkages is because it is it's a kind of output indicator, right? So scientific collaboration is still about you're doing research, but you don't know whether that will generate output, right? So so in that sense, yeah, your idea about open source is indeed something that a colleague of us, Sergio Petralia, is working on. And actually, we look for example doing a project with him on Linux, and who is adding a new content in Linux, and you can actually observe. I mean, you're talking really about many people that are actually contributing to getting the software better, and you can actually connect them to a place. right? So this is something that we are doing right now. So I think that's absolutely a good point, and then to see whether you can see linkages across places at a global scale, right? So, yeah.
There was a question.
Can I just add?
You want to add something shortly?
Super fast, but this is a great question, and we can discuss more in detail. But actually, you have a lot of AI patents, and you don't have too much difference between the US and Europe in terms of regulation when it comes to AI patent, because we use PCT. So basically, if it's like a WIPO level, so it's global standard. So in this case, it's comparable. And then we also have Ron, of course, showed just a few things, but what you can look at is just VC funding, for instance, on AI companies. So you flag AI company, and then you look at the VC funding, it's worse. It's much worse. Europe is like this, US is like this. Okay. Products. You look actually at the products that are being used even in Europe and where these products come from. I mean, look at, we use ChatGPT, we might use cloud computing, who uses Azure. I mean, you go along the whole AI value chain, it's a bloodbath, right? And in terms of collaboration, for sure, patent collaboration means a lot. It makes a lot of sense, but these are somehow rare events. So scientific collaboration is something still to be done, but also we'll be looking forward at GitHub repos and Hugging Face as well, which give you like a really a nice complete picture. So we'll come back to you when we have like the complete picture.
And I can add quickly that OECD data shows since 30 years that the number of scientific publications cited in industrial patents are really weak in Europe as regard the US. So just to give an empirical proof of what you said about academics and industrial relationships. But Anity is here to save, to repair this failure. There is a question behind.
Yes, so
just please introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah. Okay, so my name is Rahavi. I work for Akyawan here in Toulouse, and I am Canadian, so please be indulgent with my question. So you talked about how the US and China are very advanced in terms of AI compared to Europe. Why is it important for you guys that Europe together as like the group of countries advance in AI instead of just focusing on specific countries themselves? For example, you didn't talk about North America. You specifically said the US or China instead of mentioning other Asian countries. So is it, coming together in terms of population, the number and the scale, or why is that important for you guys? Thank you.
You're more that kind.
Okay. No, okay, I mean, try to see the spirit of the question, because when we talk about, when you talk about China, the spatial level of the country itself matters because the policies are designed at the Chinese level. Like, it doesn't make sense to bring together China and Japan, right? It's nothing like overarching. In Europe, we have something on top of EU countries, which is the EU. So it makes sense. And basically, the idea is that to make it super simple, France cannot lead in AI, Germany cannot lead in AI, Italy cannot lead in AI, but Europe can. Right? We have to come together. Like, I also don't believe that you could have a French Airbus and a German Airbus and an Italian Airbus, but we can have a European Airbus. So basically, when it comes to really complex technologies that are shaking the world by storm, then we need to scale. Scale matters, right? And that's why is it important? That's why it's important. Then, but when it comes to the US and Canada, I mean, this is very integrated, but there is still when you look at the CHIPS Act in the US and you look at the Reduction in Inflation Act, it's still a US policy. So if you think in terms of like the policy level and the scale of the economies and their integration, that's why usually we refer to the US, China, and Europe.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have a dilemma